Welcome everyone to the Gold Silver Bitcoin show brought to you by the GoldSilverBitcoin.com store. We are more than honored today to be sitting down with the economic ninja. He's a viral YouTuber. He's been at it for, I think, just over a year, if I'm not mistaken, and you've just taken the internet by storm. So we're very happy to have you.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, the channel hit 1 year old 2 weeks ago.
And I believe you got 100,000 subscribers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. I had a goal of my first year making 100,000 subs, and it was such a blessing to be able to nail it. I can't be more thankful to my subscribers.
Maybe that's somewhere we can actually start, because I think a lot of people are going to be looking for alternative sources of income, of which there are many these days from your typical 9-to-5 career that I think was prevalent from the post-World War II period. But I think we've obviously in the last 10 to 20 years moved away from, and increasingly so for various reasons. So can you kind of take us through that idea, what it was like to have 0 subscribers and then 1 subscriber, et cetera, and then what worked?
You know, it's funny, for years, so I've been a hustler my whole life. I've owned multiple businesses. I've always had a career, but I had my first baseball card shop, an actual storefront, when I was a sophomore in high school. So I've always been a hustler at heart. When I started this channel, it was because of pure frustration, because I knew a lot of stuff about economics and things that were coming, let's say, things that would blow people's minds that you could actually know about. But if you read the right documents on the right websites, you sort of put all these puzzle pieces together. So I was running around reaching out to all these famous YouTubers, and none of them would give me the time of day. And I didn't want to go public because of one of the companies I own. It's a small tech company. The board just didn't want me to do it. And so I finally had enough and I quit. And which is ironic because I own part of the company, so they couldn't accept my resignation. But I said, yeah, I'm going to go do this. And so I started a year ago, and I started talking about cryptocurrencies, all kinds of different ways of making money, and my past. And it started growing pretty fast. And it was interesting because I still got the cold shoulder from a lot of other YouTubers, and I wanted to do something different. And one of those things was being very genuine, honest. I'm a horrible speller. I wear the same clothes. I drink McDonald's coffees. And there was a lot of people that really liked that. And I made a couple of really good calls. I made one bad one, but on my own investments. But this last year, I've explained why lumber was going to collapse in price. I knew when it was going to, way ahead of time. And then I made a couple other calls, like what's happening right now with the oat futures exploding. I said that back in July to start preparing, because we have a massive crop die-off and this is not normal. And so it was great. And it sounds funny, but it's opened up a lot of doors, and it's actually closed some doors in the, let's say the media space. You know, some people don't want to talk now, so I don't think they understand what's going on. So yeah, we're getting about 2 million views a month right now. And it's been a real blessing.
Other than that, you're relatable, what techniques do you think worked? And what I mean is why did the algorithm allow you to be seen? Why did people keep coming back? In my experience, it really is boiled down to consistency. But what's been your experience?
Well, so you're right. What consistency is 100% of it. I read a book called Crush It by Gary V, or Crushing It. It's a yellow book. And I put it down after 2 chapters that I know everything I need to know. And one of those things was, if you're going to be doing this, you better be posting every day. And if you're going to do it every day, you better be putting it on 3 platforms. So I said, no problem. I'll post 3 videos a day and I'll put it on 10 platforms. And I was consistent. And I literally, in 1 year, we have put out almost 900 videos in 1 year. And it took a lot of work. It was consistent. And then I also, what I believe is really important is engaging your audience on the comment section. And I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I subscribed because I can't get over how many people you're answering questions to. Now, at this point, it's getting very hard, because a normal video will get, like, I don't know, 700 comments in a day or two. But a lot of thank yous. I appreciate this. That's a great idea. And then the last thing is, my inspiration comes from my followers, the people that are listening. They give me my inspiration because I'm digging deep. And that's another lesson I learned from Gary V, was listen to what your followers want to hear about. It's going to come out of their linguistics. And it absolutely does. So they bring me some of my amazing late breaking or, breaking news stories. They'll email me. Being available for your subscribers is super important. However, as you get busier, it becomes very difficult, so I'm trying to balance that right now.
The thing I like about Gary Vaynerchuk is that he really, I think, inspires people to have confidence in themselves. And he thinks that what's holding people back from posting is a lack of confidence. And I think that as we begin posting, we see that we do generally have something to contribute to the conversation. Whatever our passion may be is most likely to be that to which we can contribute on the global web dialogue that is ongoing at all times. Gary V will film videos from his bed. He'll experiment. He'll do 7-hour vlogs. And also something that he preaches is quantity over quality, I believe. Now, this is something that I think makes a lot of business people nervous because they say, I want both. However, the way that the internet works is that it's a quantity game. And if you are honest with yourselves and you look at the videos that people are spending their time watching, generally speaking, it's of a very low quality. They're short, they're unprofessional, and generally speaking, just not healthy, quite frankly, a lot of unhealthy content. So if you're able to put out some ideas out there or a higher level, a higher vibration, if you will, the quality has to come after the quantity because you're going to make it a difference. You're going to contribute to the legacy. And I believe that all the business aspects will fall behind.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more. And when we're talking about quantity and being afraid or nervous about what you're going to look like, my catchphrase is, I'm just a dude with a bro hawk and a dream. And it sounds funny, but that resonates with a lot of people. And so I started to have fun with myself, make fun of myself. I've always been a heavy guy. When I started the channel and I was about to hit 10,000 subs, I set a goal and I said, look, I'm going to lose a ton of weight and I'm going to motivate a whole new type of person. And where they go, hey, if that guy can do it, I can do it. Well, 10,000 turned into 50,000. And then by almost 100,000, I'm like, I better do this because I really didn't want to do it because I've never been in good shape. And so I said, the heck with it. We're going to launch a second channel called Ninja Motivation. I've only put two videos on right now, but what we're going to do is that channel is going to be focused on motivating people that are not necessarily into economics or becoming rich, even though most people want to be, they just don't realize it. They talk about it, but they don't really do anything about it. Try and motivate a whole new group of human beings and then bring them into that other channel if they want, to learn about being successful and not being a debt slave, things like that. So that's the plan.
Health is a booming industry. I want to talk on something that you mentioned, namely the oat crop. I'll read an excerpt from a Bloomberg article titled "Tiny North American Oat Crop Could Be Coming for Your Breakfast. The smallest harvest ever in the U.S. is expected to shrink supplies needed for everything from Cheerios to oat milk." And then the article continues or starts, "A drought struck North America's oat fields this season, and farmers are harvesting such a small crop that prices have risen to record highs, signaling inflation for breakfast staples like oatmeal and trendy alternative milk. Severe hot and dry weather probably slashed oat production by nearly half to an 11-year low in Canada, the world's biggest exporter. Similarly, in the US, one of the world's top consumers of the grain, the harvest will be the smallest ever. The result is all-time high costs that will likely filter down to consumers." You called this. Tell us more.
Yeah, so in the end of June, beginning of July, I was lucky enough to go for a family trip up to Spokane, Washington, and I traveled over to Montana, go visit some family and go have some fun. And we actually saw record high temps where actually the temperature hit a peak of 115 degrees, which is absolutely unheard of in that part of the United States. So I did a video a few days later because I was talking with growers in the area and they were like beside themselves saying literally everything we have is dying on the vine today. And I did a video about it and I used the analogy of if you ever set up a little pool when you're kids on the grass, you fill it up at the end of the day with this green grass, you dump out the water and you remove the pool and all of a sudden it's brown, right? And we all remember that. Now, ironically, the color sort of goes away, but then it sort of greens back up a little bit. But that's what happened in one day. We saw a massive crop failure in our country. Now, talking about having a thick skin when you're a YouTuber, I got tons of hate for it. Just like I got tons of hate about my lumber calls in the spring when it was exploding in price. I said, don't worry, it'll collapse in July. people have a normalcy bias, and they said, you don't know what you're talking about. Every year we have crop die-offs because of drought or heat, things like that. And I said, this one's different. It's happening in real time. And people kept in the comment section, and it was only about 10% of the comments, citing the crop report. And I tried to explain to people, the crop report actually talks about things that happened in the past. It's on what happened in the last 3 months. And I said, in 3 months, you're about to get a crop report that is so scary, it is going to absolutely blow your mind and Wall Street's mind. And a lot of people also brought up the fact, they said, well, Ninja, you must be wrong because the futures market isn't rising right now. And I said, not everybody in Wall Street knows what's going on. That's why there are multi-billionaires, and then there's people that make a few $100,000 a year on Wall Street. The multi-billionaires are the ones that understand what I'm explaining to people. I also did the same thing about coffee. Got a lot of hate about that because I said coffee is going to explode in price because we literally watched a 2-day cold snap in Brazil that wiped out most of their coffee growing, and it didn't hit, the prices did not hit the futures until just recently. So it's something I'm warning people about, and I was warning my subscribers in July. It's time to start buying coffee. It's time to start buying some extra food. And right now, prepare, because we're going to, coming into this next winter, it is going to be very devastating. And that's not me trying to scare anyone. It is a fact.
I think that from the lockdowns on, it was reasonable to expect these circumstances to arise. I think that, as the IMF called what the news media refers to as the COVID-19 pandemic, the great lockdown, that the supply chains could possibly break down, that there would be increased prices. There was rampant unemployment. And I think that these repercussions are still being felt today, and increasingly so, and they can all be, attributed to the lockdown. Now, I don't want to go down that path too much, but I do want to continue talking about the rising prices. There's so much that is rising. General food inflation. We've got, while major food companies haven't announced price increases related to oat products yet, according to the Bloomberg article that I aforementioned, the higher cost for the grain can only add to the food inflation that's been rampant this year. Global food prices recently touched a decade high, according to a United Nations index, while oat futures on Friday climbed as much as 2.1% to reach an all-time high of $6.36 per bushel. Now, with the United Nations, we saw their, a food division, I forget what it's called exactly, last year, predict there to be possibly, I believe, 200 million additional starvation deaths because of the breakdown in the food supply chains, or at least as Elon Musk says, if you don't make stuff, there won't be stuff. So can you continue on whatever comes to mind?
Yeah. So right now, what I want people to understand is we are in the eye of the storm, because the first part of the storm that hit us was when everything closed down and we had to, people started to realize, ooh, maybe I don't have enough stuff to make it through 2 weeks. And so they went to the store and they bought more stuff, right? And we saw an immediate shortage in toilet paper and certain consumer staples. I mean, I literally remember going to the aisle with rice and beans and it being gone. I'm going, I don't think these people realize what's going on right now, but that's good. It's a good start, right? It woke a lot of people up. People jumped on YouTube and social media, started looking for answers. They had a couple of weeks off of work. Some had even more than that, to really start diving down that rabbit hole. And that was great. The problem we have now is, as the economy opened back up in the spring and the summer, employment started to build up, but now we have a problem because the supply chains are getting ground to literally a halt because of people traveling. So there's a jet fuel crisis, people wanting to go out to dinner and stuff. Well, there was an employment crisis already. So now restaurants are backed up. There's all this demand all of a sudden hit too fast. And now the traffic jam is beginning on the freeway. We are all sort of moving at the same pace. And now it's all starting to back up. So now we're about to enter that next, we're going through the eye of the storm where it's sort of calm and everyone's like, yeah, they're okay. But people have that weird feeling. The next part of that storm is what we're seeing right now with these crop failures. We are having inflation due to two things in food. One is straight shortage because of the crop failures now. We're seeing that. But before, the food inflation was because the supply chain breakdown. We were seeing, a fuel crisis, a shipping crisis, things like that. So you had less food on the shelves. So of course, it's natural when you have too much dollars chasing too few goods, the price goes up. Well, now you're having the second wave of inflation, and this is the scary one. This is when we've got the trucks now to get it to you, but we can't even grow it. And that's what's very, very unsettling, unnerving. And yeah, I think it's going to get very gnarly during the winter.
Okay, I want to hear more about that, but like the news is overwhelming. It's in CNN now, for instance. We can go ahead and take a look at this article. It was published on the 29th. The workers who keep global supply chains moving are warning of a system collapse. This is CNN. Seafarers, truck drivers, and airline workers have endured quarantines, travel restrictions, and complex COVID-19 vaccination and testing requirements to keep stretched supply chains moving during the pandemic. But many are now reaching their breaking point, posing yet another threat to the badly tangled network of ports, container vessels, and trucking companies that move goods around the world. In an open letter Wednesday to heads of state attending the United Nations General Assembly, the International Chamber of Shipping, ICS, and other industry groups warned of a, quote, global transport system collapse. If governments do not restore freedom of movement to transport workers and give them priority to receive vaccines recognized by the World Health Organization. So let's focus in here more on the global transport system collapse, which I think is happening for many reasons.
Yeah, so let's focus. Let's start with America. What I did a video in the end of January that was very scary to me, but I don't think people really picked up on it. The smallest chain, which is actually ironically the biggest part of our shipping, our supply chain, is trucking, right? In January, a federal law went into effect that took, I believe it was about 25% of the truck drivers' licenses away in America. They literally just stripped them of it. It was called a Hazmat Endorsement. And truck drivers, if you want to drive for a certain trucking company hauling a certain type of goods, you need to have this endorsement that it's a quick class, an endorsement that you usually get through your local DMV that says that you are now legally allowed to transport hazardous materials. Well, almost everything's hazardous these days. You could be bringing a bunch of lighters, on your truck. And if it's like a certain size, like let's say over a pallet, I believe, it's the whole truckload is deemed hazardous, and you need that on your license. Well, the federal government, in their wisdom, decided, you know what, if you have a felony or certain misdemeanors, we're going to just yank your license. We're going to yank that endorsement. So what happened is, in the beginning of the year, a bunch of truck drivers, a lot of fuel hauling companies and things like that, all of a sudden saw a massive amount of their drivers lose their license, and they started to look for other drivers. So there were, piggyback drivers, that were now moving over to that side because they could get paid more. And we saw this huge redistribution of who was driving for who. And it is absolutely horrific, to be honest with you. There's no reason to do that. And I did a video the other day on it. It's like, why would you take a license from somebody that, let's say they made some bad decisions, served some prison time, and now they're rehabilitating their life. And a lot of these guys have been driving for like a decade or more, right? And all of a sudden it's gone. And not only that, you picked this time, it almost seems a little weird, right? And completely destroyed that. So what people don't realize, the reason why those ships are sitting offshore right now is because they don't have the amount of trucks showing up in a timely manner to get the container on and for it to drive away. They're getting as many containers off those ships as they can. They're sitting idle in the actual port because they don't have enough trucks to show up in a timely manner to grab those containers and get them out of there. So it's literally, to me, the smallest cog. It's the end shipper, the end thing. It goes from boats to the docks to the truck, and the truck takes it to the end destination. And that's where we're having the biggest issue, is the end the end piece of the supply chain, the truckers.
This is a rumor at this point. However, I did hear that perhaps the BSNF workers, the train system, are looking to perhaps go on strike as well. So that would only exacerbate the problems.
Yeah, so there's been lots of rumors about strikes. I will tell you, I've heard similar ones. I have not seen anything come to full fruition yet. But to give you an idea of the difference in the ports, right now, Savannah is a non-unionized port, and it runs 24 hours a day. The port of Long Beach, I've been doing interviews with a gentleman that owns a trucking company. He's a freight broker, and Long Beach is unionized, and they do not run 24 hours a day. They're trying to figure out how to do it, but there's pushback from the union, and this could take a lot of time. So right now, ships are literally rolling back through the Panama Canal, which, if you go look at a satellite footage right now, it looks like what's going on in LA, because they can't get enough ships through fast enough to get over to Savannah to offload their goods, because Savannah is processing a lot more units than LA is right now. If you look at it, even though they're smaller, you just look at the speed is what I'm talking about. The speed to be able to get a ship offloaded is faster right now.
You know, we mentioned earlier a little bit about like the anomalous climate conditions that are taking place. I think that this has sometimes been referred to as climate shift, perhaps as a more nuanced interpretation of what is generally termed climate change. And I think that, you know, we've seen this before. So I guess from my understanding, from like the period of 900 AD to like 12 or 1300 AD, there was the global climate optimum when temperatures rose generally, especially in the northern hemisphere at least, so that in England, for instance, they were able to grow wine crops. And so I think that whereas there is a lot of volatility, where there is a lot of volatility, there's also a lot of opportunities. So on the port front, there are clearly, as you mentioned, ports that are not unionized, which maybe we as a species need to leverage and quickly. Lewiston, Idaho comes to mind, I believe, which has a port. I believe it's the furthest east port from the West Coast. And I mean, I hope that perhaps they're able to, and it's a real port. I hope that perhaps maybe they're able to kind of shoulder some of these changes. Now, from Yahoo Finance, there's an article that says, quote, "The supply chains are everything at this point," explains an economist. Supply chain tightness is causing heightened concern over the growth of the U.S. economy, while companies mired in trucking and shipping delays scramble to find alternative routes. Quote, "The supply chains are everything at this point," Francis Donald, global chief economist and global head of macroeconomic strategy at Manulife Investment Management, told Yahoo Finance Live. "It's never been harder to create an outlook for the fourth quarter, in large part because we have absolutely no clarity on when new supply chain disruptions are going to unwind." There's another headline from, I guess, Quad City Times. It says global supply chains to impact holiday shopping season. So at least some are making fourth quarter predictions. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so I actually came out with a video first week of August saying that if you want to have any kind of semblance or a normal Christmas, go get your Christmas presents now. And I broke that all down about the supply chain problems we're going to see, which we're seeing right now. And then the vice president came out and did a video almost literally repeating me. My subscribers were texting me going, "Oh my gosh, you got to see what she just said. Sounds just like your video." And you almost got to wonder. That'd be cool if they saw the video, but it is true. It's something you need to be prepared for. But the problem is that what people don't realize is that these are normal cycles. This will, just like lumber, where it screamed up in price because of demand, it too shall pass. This too shall pass. We're going to go through a lot of pain coming into winter, especially with energy prices, because people aren't talking about the energy explosion that's about to happen in this country. And people need to be paying attention to what's happening in Europe, in Venezuela. There's all kinds of countries. Lebanon just completely went dark because they ran out of fuel for their plants. I mean, this is very serious. And guess what? We just came out with a warning. We are running out of coal super fast. And we need to, or not coal, was it nat gas? Natural gas was the lowest. One of those. I
believe it's natural gas. However, I think we might all be lucky to get coal in our stockings this Christmas.
Yeah, well, hopefully we're going to get an ounce of silver. That's what I'm trying to push, is silver in my stocking, because I mean, there's never been a time that's better for literally looking at an alternative to what's going on with fiat currencies. I mean, the whole system's breaking down right now in front of us. It just boggles my mind.
We're all watching and bearing witness to world history. And if you don't understand that, then you're like totally oblivious and you're living a real boring life, because it's, I mean, it's exhilarating. It's terrifying, but it's exhilarating. I mean, as my friend said the other day, like, we're in it. And we've never really been in it like this, especially in the United States before. But really, I mean, what's going on worldwide is unprecedented. Now, you mentioned Lebanon. Electricity out in most of Lebanon as economic crisis causes shortage of fuel. Lebanon's state electricity company has been supplying as little as 2 hours of power a day since July. Now, we see also in Britain that there's I believe there's a oil shortage. I think that they're having issues with the natural gas infrastructure. They, of course, I believe, decommissioned their nuclear power plants as well, which has just made the grid more likely to fail. Quite frankly, I think that it's important philosophically for me, when you're looking at systems, element of decentralization remains, and certainly being reliant on fewer modes of powering civilization increases risk for what we're seeing worldwide.
Yeah, so to speak to that, decentralization is massive, and there's never been a better argument or a better opportunity to break away from this fiat system worldwide. And I've been trying to tell people that if we can truly get people to become wealthy on their own, this will all go away. It's very easy to be the master of your own domain when you are your own bank, and that is super important for people to realize. And the sad thing is they don't. And this cycle was very, very easy to predict. And I predicted, in 2019, we had a banking collapse. That was horrific. It was actually worse in September of 2019, approximately a month before all this stuff happened, than 9/11, and almost worse than 9/11 and 2008 Lehman crisis combined, where the interest rate, intraday lending rate spiked to 10.5%. It was horrific. And then all of a sudden, 30 days later, the world changed. But what's sad is I was watching this in real time, went and warned a bunch of people. I said, your life is about to change in a few months. Go stock up. I even used the word toilet paper, and all I got was laughs. And so now the one that comes in the winter is going to be even worse than what happened in the spring of 2020. And they just still laugh. But the good news is, like you said, there's opportunity. My goal is to make 1 million people $1 million. And I believe that's going to be very easy with not a lot of money, because he who has a little bit of money when all this goes down will be the richest around.
You said things are going to get gnarly. I want to hear more about that. I guess I can read from the articles which are coming at us every day now, and it's painting a very clear picture. And those who don't understand that this is tied directly to the economic lockdown in many ways,
So
are out to
let me
lunch.
jump in. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So you can start reading headlines that crazy. And what's scary is that they're abundant. Right now in the last week, we have so many headlines that are saying, experts are saying the bond market's about to collapse. Experts are saying the stock market is due for like an 80% retracement, right? The truth is, like Robert Kiyosaki says, by the time it hits the news, it's too late. And now it's in the news. And so everybody's been warned. There's not going to be, and what's crazy, it's not going to happen tomorrow. I believe you're going to see this in the next 2 years. But I'd be shocked if it didn't happen. I'd be surprised, I'm not a financial advisor, that it didn't happen by next summer. And everything is imploding right now. And so when we're talking like an 80% retracement, or let's just say, and what's crazy is that people actually think that would be crazy, an 80% retracement. But yet in 2001 and in 2008, we saw a 50% retracement both times in the stock market. And this one is a super cycle. So to think that it's not going to go down 70, 80% on this next downturn is just completely, to me, insane. And so, yes, the news articles are everywhere, warning everybody, like the ones that say, all the insiders have sold all their positions, boards have chosen to sell. And, it blows my mind that people don't understand this.
I think one difference we might see from 2008, and I might be completely wrong, but I think there is evidence to suggest this could be the direction we're going, is that whereas in 2008, the banks were bailed out to the tune of, I believe it was $1 trillion, correct?
Yep.
800 billion under TARP.
Yeah.
Today, we're seeing a lady who's being floated out as the head of the Office of the Currency Comptroller as perhaps wanting to nationalize the bank. She thinks that nationalizing the bank. So we see a big crisis. We could see a nationalization of banking, including retail banks, which would just completely shift the superstructure of the US. And I don't think people understand the implications thereof, because these ideas are being floated out since these issues are so deep and widespread.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the nationalization of banks, because what we need to realize is a good magician is having you look over here while his hand's moving, and behind his back, he's doing something else. The actual tricks happen behind his back. And there's a lot of false narratives that are coming out right now. I do believe you'll not see banks get nationalized, okay? Our government can't even run itself, let alone another bank. What people don't realize is, I love that you use the word bailout, because that is exactly how it happened. Congress voted to use taxpayer funds to bail out banks, which everybody was infuriated by. Well, guess what? They changed the laws. It's actually called a bail-in now. It sounds funny. It literally sounds similar, but it's totally different, and it's that obvious. What happened is, and Cyprus and Greece, back in the early teens, was it 2013 to 2015, were the Petri dishes. They were the experiment, and the whole world was watching, including me, how the public would deal with it. And Cyprus, some banks demanded a bail-in from its depositors of up to 10%, and nobody rioted. Just, that's how it works. And that system has been, those laws have been passed on almost every continent till today. And our nation already has those set up. So you are right now an unsecured creditor of your bank. And if it goes under and it needs to take some money from every depositor, it has the legal right to do so. They don't want you to realize that. And just so you know, when it happens, they're going to be able to go, what, you didn't know about that? Look at these laws have been on the books since 2013. You're the one that actually signed the document with all that really small writing every time you open a bank account. There's only specific bank accounts that are free from this disaster that's coming. But the sad thing, it only equates to like 1% of all the money in the banking system.
So preparing for what's coming, we can look deeper at the supply chains. The problems are well documented. As the International Chamber of Shipping, ICS, wrote, global supply chains are beginning to buckle as 2 years worth of strain on transport workers take their toll. This letter that was written by the ICS has also been signed by the International Air Transport Association, the International Road Transport Union, and the International Transport Workers Federation. They represent together 65 million transport workers globally. Quote, all transport sectors are also seeing a shortage of workers and expect more to leave as a result of the poor treatment millions have faced during the pandemic, putting the supply chain under a greater threat. I think a lot of these people are going to be leaving because they oppose vaccine mandates, but that's a different story. So now, preparedness, obviously, when you're looking at what you need first and foremost, you need water and food. I think a lot of people emphasize guns. That's interesting. And I think important and an important foundation of this country, but you need water first. You need food first. So you can go and get foods that aren't going to spoil. The reason why a lot of people go and they buy storable food is for the taste. You don't want to be eating beans and rice forever. So if you go to a company that's creating storable food, you can store meals. Coffee, like you said, you're going to want coffee if there's something that you drink, and if you have the option to have it in case you're not able to go to the store and get it, or it becomes wildly expensive, then you can store that. I went to a preparedness expo here locally last weekend in Sandpoint, Idaho. And it was a preparedness expo, and the people there was all sorts of cool stuff. There's a guy who's creating, it's called Patriot Systems. He's creating a solar panel, like a portable solar panel for your backyard that plugs in. This thing's massive, but it also folds up so that you could pull it on a 150, 250 type truck. And then there was a class there on how you're going to live through an extended power outage. And what's extended power outage? Is it a day? Is it 2 days, 3 days? No, he was talking months. And this gentleman, Tony Bootham, I believe was his name, was laying out what sorts of things you might need and how you might prepare. I'll put that up live on my channel, that talk at GoldSilverBitcoin, a YouTube channel soon. There was a wealth of information that this guy was discussing, from how to store water to just where you can have places in your home which are perhaps insulated so they stay warmer, where you can kind of, I guess, go and hang out and kind of build up the warmth in this room. And apparently this was something that a lot of homes used to have probably before World War II. And then also herbal medicine. They were talking about herbal medicines. It's funny because these are all like preppers and you think they're like crazy, like just right wingers or whatever. But in many ways, they're more hippie than the liberals of today. Herbal medicine. And the general awareness of this crowd that, they might not always have the accoutrements of civilization was not paranoid, but just practical. PrepCom was another company there, and they have like a Morse code system where you can, I guess, easily interpret Morse code. It'll interpret it for you, I believe, is the product. And then moving on from there, then I guess networks of people. Like, you need to meet like-minded people in your community. Now, a really easy way to do this is on Facebook. There's groups of people who are like-minded, who are perhaps preparing themselves, or they have lived on a homestead or in a farm, and they just have more knowledge than those urban dwellers. Finding these people and learning from them in these groups, you don't even need to participate. You can just read, is hugely beneficial. I would recommend that these groups consider an alternative to Facebook. That is where many of them are. We should be on Facebook, and like Gary Vaynerchuk says, on multiple platforms. And one thing I think Gary Vaynerchuk's missing his opportunity on are some of these new alternative platforms, which have whose reputations are soiled by mainstream media like Gab and others. These are not like hotbeds of racism. They're just normal people, just like those on Twitter, perhaps less venomous, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
so now we've got networks of people. Like, what are you telling your subscribers they need to do to prepare for what's coming?
So my thing is going real practical. So a couple of different things here. So if you got to shave your face, right, and use disposable razors, why wouldn't you just go buy a big pack of them at Costco and lock in the price right now, knowing that they might not show up from China next month, right? If you're going to store water, people that store water all the time, I'm like, why don't you just buy a really good water filter? I've got a water filter that I put on my channel because I've been using it for the past 10 years and it's amazing. And it takes out everything, including fluoride. Just thinking real common, just like common sense. Because I've watched people that store up like a pallet of water jugs and I'm like, that plastic's leaching into your water and you haven't used it. So why would not just get a really good stainless steel water filter that can filter 3 gallons every like 6 hours? That's just practical thinking like that. Also, when you're talking about food, it sounds funny. I said a couple of years ago to a church group I went and talked to, I said, if you want to beat the S&P and the Dow this year, just go buy canned goods. I guarantee you the canned goods will go up more on a percentage basis than their stock market. And they did. But you don't get, crazy things. You don't need fruit cocktail and things full of sugar. You need things that are going to sustain life, And the thing is, like you brought up the coffee, this doesn't have to be like a bad thing. This isn't like prepping crazy. It's called being responsible. This is how all the earth has handled stuff up until about the last 80 years, with on-time delivery. And, I went up to Alaska for a course for my job a couple of years ago, and they think we're nuts because we don't prepare because they have weather that comes in. I mean, it blows me away every time there's a hurricane and people are like screaming for the government to help them because they don't have power. I'm like, where's your generator? Well, it's because they bought a flat screen TV instead of buying a generator a long time ago. That just blows me away. So it's just real, practical things. And again, conquer your finances right now. This isn't the time to be buying, cars you can't afford or having credit card debt that can't afford. If you can't afford that vacation, don't go on it. If you don't have a little bit of gold and silver, if you don't have a little Bitcoin, you got issues. And the sad thing is people have no clue. I've been getting laughed at since Bitcoin was $4. Now I didn't buy it at $4, but I was trying to get a whole group of people to buy it at 40 and they all laughed at me. And what's funny? Those same people laugh at me when it went from 19 grand in 2017 down to $10,000 because they thought they had one over on me, but they can't realize that guy was telling us we should all buy it at $40. So humans are funny. It's like, we got to step back, be practical, and understand there's a narrative out there that makes people that are smart and make money and are successful because the way they do it, they like to make fun of them. So you have to look at why that narrative's there.
Okay, so one critique, I agree wholeheartedly, but I actually think that people should take that vacation. And one way you can take that vacation and perhaps have a return back to you is by doing something like we're doing right now, right? Like my vacations are lined up with work. I'm going to Las Vegas. I'm not excited about that, but this is just an upcoming example. I'm going to Vegas for a blockchain conference. That's probably a bad example because I'm not super excited about going to Vegas.
I want to go to that actually. That's coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Coin Agenda, October 25th through the 27th. It's the same week as Money 2020, which I might be able to get a pass to. So like, that's the vacation. I'm not super excited about going to Vegas, but here's a better example. Florida. I went to Florida in April for a Bitcoin conference. Miami's really cool. Florida is happening right now for sure. A lot of tech companies are moving to Florida. I'm not sure that's the best strategy. I guess professionally it might make sense, although I think there's some areas of the country which I would perhaps recommend over turning Miami into a tech hub.
I know where you're going with this. Let me jump in because I completely agree with you. You're right. So if you're going to go on a vacation to clear your mind, and I'm talking about people that can't afford the vacation, but yes, if you're going to go somewhere with purpose. And a couple different things you could do when you go on a vacation. Start looking at alternative places to live, right? Just get an idea of what the country has to offer, the politics, all that stuff. And then secondly, when you go to these events, which you and I met at the Silver Symposium, it does a lot for your mind. Because one thing is you realize, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that thinks this way. And you get to talk to amazing human beings, make friends. And I've made some lifelong friends at these conferences. And that's another thing that's a good thing. So if I hear you right, use that vacation time to benefit your future and your family's future in multiple ways.
Absolutely. And part of the reason why I think that's important right now is because like we shouldn't be taking everything for granted. And this was something that Ron Paul said at the Bitcoin conference in 2021, which was a great conference. It was a freedom and liberty conference first and foremost. And part of that might have very well been because Ron Paul kicked it off. And he I think was expressing that we shouldn't be taking what we have now for granted. We shouldn't be having a conference with 12,000 people for granted anymore. We shouldn't take the Silver Symposium, the CDA Silver Show for granted anymore. The fact that 1.5 years ago, we weren't able to leave our home. Any thoughts on like people like, I guess, if not prepping or preparing, like we've talked about, furthermore, like how they can kind of remain, I guess, spiritually fulfilled?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It is a spiritual moment when you start to prepare. It really is, because what happens is you stop thinking about, people go, well, that's selfish. You're just thinking about yourself. But actually, you're thinking about the future and you're doing something you don't necessarily want to do. Preparing is not fun. It costs money and takes time, right? But what happens is your mind starts to open up to something that you've never, ever done before. And then what happens is you start to see the possibilities and the opportunities because you're going to be prepared. And I want to talk about the Ron Paul thing, because the week I saw Ron Paul, I was in a room with about 200 people the week that everything started in China. Let's put it that way, in 2019. I'm there with a lot of bankers, and it was one of those, oh man, this is really going to happen. Let's see how the public deals with it. And then to watch the public deal with it was just mind blowing to me. I went with one of my business partners. We used to sit at Costco. And I'm not joking. I'm not trying to mock people, but we used to sit and just watch, because we got mocked for years for getting ready for this. We watched the line that literally went out the door around the entire Costco. It must have been like hundreds of feet long. And we'd sit there and just talk and just look at the people and go, look at the looks on their face. They're burning so much time for toilet paper. And it's like, see, honey, this is why I bought a little extra toilet paper. And so it does a thing that frees your mind. So yeah, I think that's one really big thing. And the other thing too, is I did a video the other day on how to take your pennies in your pocket, figure out which ones are made of solid copper and which ones aren't, and just put the copper ones in a jar and just hold it. So there's no excuses, like people tell me all the time, I don't have money for silver. And I said, well, you got a Starbucks coffee in your hand. That was $6. And I know that that's enough for 2 silver dimes right now. So nobody has an excuse. And once you start small, I started with 2 ounces of silver, and my life changed after that in 2010. Then obviously it really changed with blockchain, going through the ICO phase. So I don't want to digress, but yeah, it is something that's important.
I'm reading, I saw from Zuby, who's a rapper. I don't know if you know who Zuby is, Zuby. He is from Britain. He's been touring the US. I believe he had gone to New York, California, DC before landing in Nashville, Tennessee. And he says that the people are so much happier in middle America, essentially, than they are on the coast, where the lockdowns I think were particularly strict. Mask mandates have, I guess, remained in place. And for some reason, generally the vibes, as he stated, on the coast are just far more downtrodden than what he's experiencing in Nashville, Tennessee. And I've experienced this too, as well, here in having moved from San Diego, California to North Idaho. It's a completely different, I guess, way of living nowadays. And I think that there have been so many second order, third order effects from the lockdowns, cognitively speaking, depressions. I think suicides have skyrocketed, that people need to, I think, start considering, I guess, in a more sophisticated fashion, the results of like economic decisions such as lockdowns, et cetera. And so I'm just bringing up what Zuby says, that people seem happier in middle America. I concur.
We need to not take this for granted, because we don't know what the next 6 months or 2 years are going to look like. And we may not be able to go to another event. And I think it's one thing to go to a crypto event where everyone's like super stoked and, Dogecoin's mooning and that's fun and all. But it's another thing to go to something like what you and I, how we met at the Silver Symposium, where we're talking about real economic issues and really cool stuff, that people can prepare for, but also make money from.
What's next for Economic Ninja?
So did I tell you about the weight loss channel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell
So,
us more.
so I started that. I told myself I'd do it at 100,000 subs and subscribers, followers. And I did it. I've only put two videos on, and trust me, I'm nervous because I've always been heavy set, and I thought, hey, why don't I just be an example of some? And I think that this next 90 days is so crucial. I said, look, I set a goal of losing enough weight to where I got abs. So that's never happened in my life, and I wanted to make the goal very difficult so that I can encourage a whole new group of people. But we're literally talking, as you're talking about preparedness, I'm going to lose weight through intermittent fasting, where I'm only eating 1 meal a day, or sometimes I'm going to go 3 days with only water, and it's going to explode my health. I know I've done a lot of scientific, a lot of research on it. I've used it in the past, but I'm using it now specifically at this time, this day, to encourage people, because you're right. And I've said it too, it's going to get very gnarly, very scary, but there's also so many opportunities. But the problem is you need to be able to identify the opportunities, and you can't do that when you're sluggish. You're having issues with your weight, you're having issues with your health. And so I started that channel to try and really motivate people in the next 90 days. And so next time I'm in Miami, which I may run into you around the first of the year, I plan on looking completely different. And it's going to, and hopefully in hopes to help a whole new generation of people.
So I think I'm hearing a lot about fasting these days. I think that there's some benefits to that. Fasting, it will entail just like eating during a window. So you can eat between the hours of 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. And that's kind of your eating window. And then supplementing. There's all sorts of kind of cost-effective ways to supplement for the winter. For those of you who are perhaps north of like LA or San Francisco and north, in the winter, as Dr. Ryan Cole has mentioned out of Idaho, that it's really not the cold or flu season, but rather more like a low vitamin D season. So perhaps supplementing with vitamin D is certainly a intelligent strategy to stay healthy during the winter. I believe Dr. Fauci says he takes 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every day. Now, yeah, I kind of want to close up here with a new technology that's coming to the world. It's from Microsoft. This is really exciting. It might help you anyone lose weight. So if we look at Microsoft has applied for a patent of a cryptocurrency system using body activity data. In the filing, the multinational conglomerate argued that as a part of a cryptocurrency mining process, a task can be given to a user to complete, like say going on the treadmill. The cryptocurrency system can give a task to your device, instructing you to complete a human body activity. Will you do that? Will you use that?
Well, the problem is the rabbit hole that one leads down to. It also deals with a special microchip that gets its energy from the heating and cooling of the human body. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I won't be using that. Microsoft has actually dove into cryptocurrency for so many years now, put so many billions of dollars into tech behind it, and filed a lot of patents. But no, I'll find my motivation from me and God, and it's going to be awesome. So I'll be self-sufficient. Let's put it that way.
We have been more than honored to sit down today with the Economic Ninja. You can find him on YouTube at the Economic Ninja, as well as on Twitter at Economy Ninja. Thank you so much for joining us today, the Economic Ninja.
Yeah, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's all mine. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for listening. What's up, everyone? I hope you enjoyed the show. Head on over to GoldSilverBitcoin.com for more content like this, as well as long-form written articles about precious metals, Bitcoin, and other topics. Also, check out our shop where you can get precious metals, storable foods, and all sorts of other cool survival and prep gear as well.